welcome to the Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. Over that away is DZ. You can catch him on Bolt Up by DZ, if I'm not mistaken, is the show name. You can catch that over on the YouTubes. We will go ahead and leave that link down below in the comments if you want to go ahead and take a look. We have posted that to all channels now for you to go ahead and give that a gander. Go ahead and subscribe. We will be streaming there live as well. If not already, it will be next week for sure. And DZ will slowly start posting additional Chargers content on there for your viewing pleasure. Down directly below, we have Monsieur Jack Hanna representing your Las Vegas Raiders. And we are very close to getting a fourth back on the show to represent the Kansas City Chiefs after Mr. Smug left us. We have a ton to talk about this week. I mean, there's stuff stacking, if you will, over the course of this past week. There is a lot to go over. We got Raiders news, we got Broncos news, and we got a big Chargers game coming out, and we got a lot of camp news that has come out from all of our teams, actually, to go over on the show today. So stay tuned, ask your questions, and we shall go from there. We're going to throw over to you, Jack, to start us off, because your team made some big moves in this past week. And there's also some additional news, actually, with regards to the Raiders this week. So go ahead and kick us off, and we'll go from there.
Hey, salute, Dark. Kona, here you go, brother. Cheers. So, yeah, the Raiders, you guys ever been like the Chuck E. Cheese and, seen that game when you're a kid, Whack-A-Mole?
Yeah.
So this is the best way I can describe this whole Christian Wilkins thing. I mean, you're hearing, okay, he got injured last year, again, playing against the Broncos, to where he had to have like screws put into his toe, and it made him miss the whole season. It's supposed to be like a 6 to 8 week thing. And then, he gets out of the walking boot, and then you hear, stories that he re-injures the foot and he's back into a walking boot. And then now, what Pete Carroll said, and it's going to be interesting because this will circular back, that he's always in the building. He's working out. He's doing his thing. He's, contributing to like getting himself better. And then this crazy video comes popping out where, he's like dancing around in the weight room. And, for Raider fans, it was like a very encouraging sign that, hey, maybe he's going on the right path to getting back to where he's going to be able to play football again. So it was actually a pretty exciting moment, for Raider Nation, that he was coming back. And then you start hearing this, stuff about, okay, the doctor said that he really should have a surgery, and he's saying, no, I shouldn't have a surgery or another surgery on that. And then, behind the scenes, the Raiders, again, because it's 50 days, said, hey, we're gonna take away your guaranteed money, which is like $35.2 million. So, and it was really odd, again, he's in the building, he's working out, but he filed his grievance on the last day. So they gave him 50 days notice, and the day that he got cut was the day that he filed a grievance. But then it comes out, you're hearing, okay, it really wasn't the same injury. It was the toe next to the toe that got damaged. Hey, what's up, Cool Kev? So it's like, okay, where did that kind of come from? And again, it's looking like he's potentially could play. But the team doctors, and again, this is where things get kind of whack-a-mole. It's like, well, the doctors for the Raiders are, and I see it both sides. Doctors saying, hey, you need a second surgery to fix this second, toe. Well, we can't say we can clear you. And then he says, no, I'm not going to get that second surgery, again, on a different toe. So it's like, I don't know what his doctor said, about that, in a way of like, oh, yeah, you can, heal it on your own. And, you don't need to have that second surgery. And then it just gets even crazier from there. It's like, then you start hearing about the kissing bandit. So then, after he gets cut, Then you start hearing that he kissed somebody on the forehead, and they
It's,
showed a picture.
It was your
Yeah.
fellow D lineman.
Hey, there's
Jack.
my boy Gordon. Salute.
It was
And
the
so-
guy that came out and said, "I hope he gets like treatment or whatever. I hope he gets like."
We'll get to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's the timeline. I'm trying to file the timeline on this. So then that gets leaked. Okay, if you go to HR again, you won't leak this stuff. So somebody leaked it to someone. We all know somebody knows somebody they played college ball with or was on a different team. So that stuff's going to get leaked one way or another. And they showed a picture. It was kind of funny. Was him trying to kiss Hunter Renfrow, and Renfrow was like this. Well, Renfrow. Apparently, this was like something that happened like a week or two ago.
Oh, it wasn't at Clemson?
No. He did it when Renfrow and him were, played for the Raiders. They're like best friends. All right. So Renfrow, he was in the wedding party. So he wasn't on the team, so he's not going to complain about it, but that's what they showed. Then a couple of days later, they said, oh, it was like kissing somebody on the cheek. And they show a picture of Christian Wilkins kissing Max Crosby on the cheek. And so it's like, okay, so whoever that player was took offense to it. And I don't even know if that's true. Again, it's just people speculating. You look at all these, NFL insiders, and they're speculating, but somebody went to HR and said, hey, I didn't like that. And again, that's when you start hearing that's like kind of was like the nail in the coffin. Okay, then the next whack-a-mole pops up. And what the next thing that was said, and again, this is coming from Adam Butler, and this is what I listen to more than anything else.
That's who I was talking
So
about.
Adam Butler played with Christian Wilkins in Miami. They were on the same line. They played next to each other in Miami. Both were on the Raiders. They played right next to each other on the Raiders. So I'm sure they know each other extremely well. And when he was interviewed yesterday at training camp, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to get into this at all. But, what he's saying, he started talking about mental health. And he didn't specifically, he said, I'm not going to talk about this, but I will say this. And he starts talking about mental health. And, there's millions of people out there. So, not getting directing it at him, but again, it's what it sounds like. Go and get yourself some mental health and get yourself looked at. And again, not saying Christian Wilkins, but it seems like that's what it was directed at. So when the Raiders finally cut him, they put out a post. So, and what they said is, we have decided in the best interests of the organization to move on from Christian Wilkins, and he has been informed of his release from the team. The franchise has commitment to excellence on and off the field. Hey, what's up, Nav? Hey, what's up, Gerald? What's up, Rosetown? It's like with on and off the field. I mean, right there, that says something's not right as well. So on and off the field, with no clear path for a future to return to play from Christian, this transaction is necessary for the entire organization to move forward and prepare for a new season. So, and I've looked at this a couple different ways. I'm looking at it, trying to look at it from the player side. I'm like, well, you don't want to look like you're a cheap ass, to the players, but you also got to do what you think is in the best interests of the organization. So really what is, being true, right now, again, it's anyone's guess. And again, I'm sure the whack-a-moles are going to pop up again. And, within a day or two, there's going to be more information coming out, on Christian Wilkins. It's amazing. You sign a player, 4 years, 110 million, 87.5 million guaranteed, plays 5 games for you. And then, even before the season starts, you cut him and you're going to take a ton of dead cap hit no matter what. I think this year they had like 36 million on there left. And then after the cut, what they do have to pay him again, they lost like 20, they had 27 million is what they got hit. So they only got about $8 million left in salary cap to be able to take on that much money. And again, one of the top, he's a top 10 at his position, just to say, go kick cans. Yeah. There's definitely something more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Hey, what's up, Matt Marinovich? That's out there that we haven't heard yet. So it's definitely every day just seeing what is going to happen. And next year, if they, depending on the arbitration and who wins, I mean, they can potentially get about 21 million back.
You guys have a ton of cap space next season, Jack.
We do. We have a lot, but it's the cap hit on him. If we lose, is going to be like 29,775,000 will be coming off of that cap, depending on how this stuff pans out. So it's just really a very bizarre situation. Yeah. And the one thing I will say for the Raiders, they just don't have much luck in getting these all-pro, top-end, free agents.
Dude, Jack, I'm telling you, this is Tom Telesco written all over it, buddy. He brought in J.C. Jackson. The guy came in, had an extra foot in his damn ankle, and then went missing and played like trash. And we paid him all that money. And then this is like he brings in Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. Similar thing, gets hurt after 5 games.
I agree with you, DZ. I mean, he is definitely a voodoo because, it's like, for Raider fans, no offense, bro, but the Raider fans will call the Chargers like the paper tigers because you guys always field such a good team. But it seems like, yes, anyone under Telesco, they got voodoo. And they end up getting hurt.
Yeah, it was the Telesco days, and all Chargers fans know that. They were like, they got tired of being crowned the offseason champs, which this guy's team is carrying that crown, in my opinion, is the off-season champs, in my opinion. So they can deal with that because I don't want that anymore. But yeah, Tom, I mean, he brought you guys some really generational guys, and then he misses, but when he misses big, and it's detrimental to the team. The thing is about Wilkins to me is, from an outsider looking in, and I guess we're all outsiders, right, is it was a business move. I think something happened. They, like you said, Pete said he saw him in the building all the time, but they're like, this isn't getting any better, right? Like his foot, like we need to go. We need to play, right? So they probably recommended him having a second surgery or something. I see Richie's disagreeing with me. And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. But the Raiders are like, we need you, dude. Like our doctors are telling us one thing. We don't give a shit what your doctors are saying. Like, do it. And then, now I'm assuming that was Adam Butler who probably went up and said something, but you're saying that they're friends. So now that doesn't really make sense. But, then the Raiders are like, this is just the last straw. Let's not deal with this. And, Pizza, I don't want to say he's a no-nonsense guy, but he's trying to build something there. So he doesn't want distractions right now. He's trying to incorporate his vision into the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think Wilkins is probably a distraction they want to get rid of sooner than later,
Yeah.
I'm going to say you are...
Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry, I'm gonna say, so you brought up 3 points there. One is that the whole doctor thing. The other one was one was I don't want to have surgery. The second one is the discrepancy between Wilkins' doctor and the team doctor. And then the third is Pete's trying to build something and he sees this as nonsense and crap and he wants it gone.
Sure.
So I agree with 66.666% of what you just said. And I actually disagree with the 1/3 as being one of the reasons, which is I actually don't think the team particularly gives a crap, like at all, about what Wilkins or his doctors think. But I do think that that's what Wilkins' perspective is going to be. And I think what Wilkins' angle on this is going to be that I have video of me moving around and dancing and hip-hopping and bebopping and stuff, even with my hurt foot. I have been told by my doctor, and I have video evidence to prove that I'm capable of moving around and performing. This team and their doctor is not letting me do it. Yes, they're entitled to their opinion, but that does not make their opinion correct. So I think that's Wilkins' argument here, and I think that there is some validity to that, right? Like, let's be honest, the team doctors also said that all these players needed to have COVID shots. and we're finding out that there is some risk involved in that, and perhaps that might need to be reevaluated, right? And that's fair as well. So, right? I mean, look, we can look back in hindsight now, and YouTube allows this now in their guidelines, so that's great. Where you can actually talk about it, to say, hey, like there is some validity to some of the naysayers back then, and
Yeah.
maybe the world should have maybe taken a half step back to think about whether or not that was the right thing to do with unbelievably healthy and unbelievably fit young men. Just saying, right?
Yeah.
And then you flip the coin here to the team's perspective, which I think also is incredibly valid as well, which is we pay our team doctor to evaluate our players to ensure that they are in the best physical health to maximize their potential on our team. And then their stance is going to be, we don't really give a crap what his doctor or his opinion is. Our team doctor believes that it is not possible for him to perform up to his optimal level with a broken toe, dislocated toe, whatever the scenario may be, and is the suggestion to repair it fully so that he can then return back and play to his very best, or the very best of his ability once it is fully healed. And
Yeah.
I truly think that this is going to be, I hate to bring up the medical stuff again, but this is going to bring up a really, really interesting fissure again, I think, within the NFL, which is,
Right.
does the player get to choose what they do to their body in terms of medical assistance and medical health, or can a team draw a line somewhere, and more importantly, where is that line? And I think this, I don't think we really got into the details, but I think this is super fascinating in
Oh, I
terms of
agree. It's the
where this
whack-a-mole.
can, yeah, like where's this going to land? And I think this is going to be super, super interesting.
I mean, you've got HIPAA involved as well, right? So, like, will we ever really know unless he comes out on, Parsons' podcast or something, or Bussing with the Boys, you know what I mean? Telling, what exactly happened or his side of the story. But, it's unfortunate because, if I was a Raiders fan, like, knowing what that guy did in Miami, right? Like, just picturing him healthy. So, but at the same time, like, look, it's gone. It's time to move on. I was kind of browsing at the Raiders' depth, at that D-line position, and I wouldn't say any of those guys are star names, but there's some guys that have some really good potential. Especially I believe Graham runs at 4.3, right?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there's some guys on there that I like, and obviously not to Wilkins' level, especially with that pass rush, but move on, man. You guys are building, and like Jack kind of mentioned, I peeked at your guys' cap space, and I was like, oh wow, so they're gonna have a lot of money to play with going into next season as well. But yeah,
I don't even know how to kind of read the cap space, right now as a whole, just for the simple fact, because again, there's going to be that litigation, that's going on right now, and who knows how long that's really going to take. But kind of transferring back to what Richie said, and that's where it made a lot of, when this first broke, and like, okay, the Raiders doctors, are you going to say, okay, we don't want you to go out there. You need a second surgery. But if we say we clear you and you get hurt, then we're on the hook. I mean, at the same time, you get the player's perspective. Yeah, I got my own doctor, just from the, telling me this, and I trust this doctor more. And so Richie makes a really good point in the way of like, so what is the NFL really going to do at some point with these contracts? Again, it's going to be the team's doctors or the players' doctors. I mean, they're probably going to have to come up, kind of what we talked with Ref Guru, have like a third party, somebody like to bridge it. You know what I mean? Someone to bridge it that has no vested interest in either way. And the thing that'll be really interesting with Kristen is that we're day 6, right? He's an all-pro. So I've heard kind of hearing from what he should do as a player is he's probably going to wait until it's done, to sign about that money. Or is it like a team, we'll find out if other teams, because he is a top 10 player at his position, nobody signed him yet, right?
No.
And it'd be interesting to see, you know they're going to have their doctors that are going to be involved in, you know, looking at them if they want to bring them over or not. So I think it's really going to be, does Christian Wilkins get signed by another team, and does he go out there and play? And that will kind of tell you everything if he does go out and play, or he does not get signed by a team and doesn't play.
Dude, I'm dealing with a slight foot injury right now, and this is kind of weird. I know Richie was talking about a foot injury. They're no joke, dude. I could barely move, and I'm just like thinking about him. And you saw him dancing and whatever. And somebody in the comments kind of mentioned something with hardware, which I've had hardware in one of my feet, my left foot before, and that is scary because say he were to get injured with that hardware in his foot and that breaks again. Well, you have potential like bone marrow poisoning, shattering of bones, like all kinds of crazy stuff. So if his foot doctor was like, hey dude, like we're not doing this, let's let it heal this way or that way, like, you know, who's he to be like, you know, so it's like there's two sides of this, right? But and then the goofy stuff that came afterwards with kissing some dude on the forehead. Look, man, I've seen 100 times worse in locker rooms, man.
Right. I can't even imagine, because like, you know, HR, like, you know, you got, you know, all sorts of laws out there, you know, about HR releasing this. So I'm just thinking it's got to be a player to another player, then leaking it out that way. You know, it's whack-a-mole. And it's like, you know, and also the thing too, it's like, you know, Christian, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that they notified him 50 days ago. So he waited to the last day to file, and which is interesting. He was the player rep, you know, for, you know, for the union. And, you know, that day too, it's like, you know, two of the top officials within the Players Association are gone. So it's like, who's even going to run the show to even represent them?
Yeah.
So it gets crazier and crazier by the day. I can't say I've ever seen anything like this.
Definitely not good, right? But you know.
No.
So you've got another piece of news, Jack. I think the Wilkins thing is going to be an interesting one. I think we're going to just have to wait and see what else comes out.
Oh, and yeah, next week I'm sure.
I mean, but obviously here, let's just be honest. All of this stuff leaked was 100% done by the Raiders organization.
Oh, I believe it. Well, someone, you know, like someone or someones within the organization.
They wanted that door closed, man. They wanted that door. They were like, "See ya, dude. Peace. Be gone."
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and you know, here's the thing too, that like I mentioned, is that Pete Carroll said he was in the building, working out, working hard. You know, he's a workout warrior, and you know that can really come back to bite the Raiders in the ass because of what Pete Carroll said before. So that'll be interesting, because I'm sure that, you know, the Players Association is going to use that, you know, that information as well too. The other thing, again, like I said, the Raiders have really bad luck with all-stars, like all pros. And another guy that the Raider Nation loved, you know, we got him a couple years ago. We traded to Green Bay a first and a second to get Davante Adams, who grew up in Northern California, who grew up a Raiders fan. So, you know, like, come on home, son. And he was so happy to play with Derek Carr. But it was interesting, just came out today, and I'm sure the Raiders fans in the chat probably have already read this and already seen it. But Davante, you know, again, once Derek Carr got let go, then that's when he started griping with the Raiders himself, and he wanted to get out of there because he's like, oh, I'm not, you know, oh, you're not going to play Aiden O'Connell? You're going to play Minshew? And then he's like, okay, I want to get out of here. I want to go play with Aaron Rodgers. You know, I want to play with someone I have that connection. That's the reason why I came here, to play with DC. So he goes and plays his time there. And of course, he ends up on the Rams. And guess who ends up also on the Rams? Jimmy G, you know? So Jimmy G, and actually it's kind of funny too, because the Raiders tried to keep some of his money. I think it was like about $11 million in saying for PEDs. And, you know, now that I saw that, I didn't even know that last year. So I'm going to have to see if there's more info, if they won or lost on that one. But now he's saying, oh, I have no problems with Jimmy G. It was just a bad time in Las Vegas. It's on the Raiders. Yeah. But before, he was sitting straight up saying, no, I want AOC 4 and not booger eating Minshew. So again, it's just the stuff that comes out. It's just very fascinating, and things how it changes based on the person that you didn't like before is now on your team as your backup quarterback.
There was like something similar to that. There was like a baseball player that just got traded. Forgot his name, but it's the same thing. He just got traded just the other day from Detroit, or like when he got to trade from Detroit to the Texans, he says, "Well, at least I'm not in California," and I get he just got traded to the Angels, so he's going to probably backtrack those comments and be like, "Well, no, California's great. I love it here."
Right. Right.
So Jack,
what you're
telling me. So Jack, what you're telling me is that Adams has phogonophobia.
He's got something.
The fear of mustaches. The fear of
I think-
mustaches.
Yeah, I would think so. He definitely didn't want Garoppolo, and well, I don't think Garoppolo even had a mustache, even though he should get a mustache. But yeah, he didn't like with Jimmy G, and like I said, his whole thing was, I want Aiden O'Connell. That's who I have my back for, is Aiden O'Connell, and he didn't get, and Aiden O'Connell didn't play. It was Jimmy G who was horrible, and Matt Marinovich right there, hashtag hospital balls. Garoppolo, that is pure facts, bro. So, yeah.
Well, they did call him porn star Jimmy, and
Well, he did get like a free pass.
Ron Jeremy was infamous for the mustache, so I guess there's a tie there anyway. But when you look at a guy like Adams, it's going to be really, really interesting in terms of how we can revitalize his career, because he's had some down years, although even despite poor quarterback play, he still had pretty decent stats, but not what he was used to, right?
Right.
But now he has a bit of a reputation of like the diva attitude. He didn't really have that coming from Green Bay. He was always the calm, cool, collected dude who was kind of just along for the ride and just did really well on the field. And then he came to the Raiders and he tried to assert his stardom, if you will. And the organization basically said, nah. Nah. you think you're that guy, but you're not that guy. And I think that's a huge issue for him. And he's going to have to recalibrate himself to try to get himself back to a position where he's going to be thought of in the same light as he once was, because I think he's been brought down a few pegs and he needs to get himself elevated back up. And it's going to be very interesting to see how he goes about in doing it.
And I don't think he's the number one on that team, to be honest with you.
No. And,
Puka.
well, sorry. I think he should or could be a number one. But the thing is that he hasn't elevated himself back up to that level to prove it, and therefore he's not being treated like one. He's not getting the balls like he used to as a number one guy, and he's no longer putting in that extra effort, I think, is the real issue, that he used to really elevate his career. And I think that'll ultimately hurt him in a couple different ways. One, I don't think he's played at a high enough level for long enough in his career to be seen as a gold jacket guy. And I think if he turns it around fast, I think he can perhaps get himself back on track to where he will be at least in the conversation.
I mean, there's people out there that peg the Rams as, Super Bowl contenders this year. I mean, they were like this close against the Eagles last year. And, I know they're dealing with Matt Stafford's back injury. I mean, the guy's, pretty beat up. So I could see where they like take it slow with them, because they're expecting to be in the playoffs. I mean, that team's pretty set up. I'm not a Rams fan. I can't stand them, to be honest with you guys, but we'll see.
And actually, ASAP made a good point. He said, let's be real. Davante Adams was done wrong by Josh McDaniels. Davante Adams comes to the Raider Nation to play with Derek Carr. Adam was bamboozled by Josh McDaniels. Absolutely. ASAP, that is the best thing I've ever heard you say, bro. I love that take.
I agree.
And I totally agree.
I agree.
That's funny. I
actually agree. I completely agree. Like he he was brought in under false pretenses, and there's no way that Josh McDaniels didn't already know he was planning on kicking Carr to the curb.
Absolutely.
There's just no way. There's just no way.
There is no way. It's like, I totally agree. I mean, that statement's facts. It's like when you get, a guy like Derek Carr, one of his best strengths was changing the ball at the line, doing audibles based on the defenses he sees. And your head coach comes up to you and just says, run the damn play. Don't audible. That's just setting you up for failure. So, yeah, he was looking to get him out. So, yeah, Devontae was definitely bamboozled because otherwise he may not have even wanted to come here. He just wanted to play with Derek Carr, who was like their best friends.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously, that's kind of the news. I'll go next with the Broncos news, and then we will throw over to DZ or DZ rather.
Ooh, look at
and talk
you.
about. Well, I've been watching far too much American news lately.
It was a slip, man.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about the upcoming game, the Hall of Fame game for you, and then we'll finish off the show with a combination of Jackson my camp news in terms of Raiders and Broncos. So, obviously, news from Broncos country since last week's show. We have, sadly, Singleton with a broken thumb or a dislocated thumb, kind of one of the two. Either way, that's going to cause him to probably play with a club of some sort, at least for the early part of the season. I'm going to be honest, I'm not that worried for him because he plays with a certain style that I just don't think is going to matter much. But I am also not as concerned as other Broncos fans for reasons that I will talk about in terms of other news out of Broncos training camp. So we will move swiftly along to additional Broncos news, which is Courtland Sutton getting the bag. His average annual per year is $23 million. So he got a pretty good raise overall as a not guarantee, but a pretty good raise overall, generally speaking. And in addition to that, the Broncos really didn't pay him absolute top of market, which helped the team look at and being able to likely bring in other players. So I was a huge fan of that. I really liked kind of what that looked like for my team. Although
I was bummed out.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest though. I actually think that if we're being honest as Broncos country, Sutton is a fantastic player. But in terms of number one wideouts, generally speaking, he is certainly near the lower end of that list. And it may have actually hurt us a little bit in terms of additional player acquisition and overall elevation of that wide receiver room, just because he's going to be a fixture now within that room. And we would have otherwise been able to maybe circle him out or cycle him out of the room and bring in some younger, talented guys, and or even another draft pick perhaps next year if it made sense to do so. I actually do firmly believe that we could have been in a better spot as a team. And I know this is unpopular within Broncos country, but the short answer from me is don't care. And that is, I actually think that he would have been probably better suited for value for our team if we traded him.
I mean,
I think you still got that. I think you still got that opportunity. I mean, yes, it's 4 years, 92 million, 23 per, but only 41 million is guaranteed. So I didn't look it up. Did you look it up in the way of like, is it just the first 2 years that are, kind of got the guaranteed money, and then the last 2 years there's no guaranteed money?
I didn't see any details.
Just give me one sec.
All I know is
Hang
that
on.
the Broncos have. Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna say something. The Broncos have locked up a lot of key players. Pat Surtain, Quinn Miners, Jonathan Cooper, Garrett Bowles, Sutton, DJ Jones, Hufanga, Brandon Jones, Greenlaw, and then you could just throw in Ingram and JK in there. So they've done.
Well, it'll be interesting next year though. With the Broncos, you got guys like Nick Benito, who's a stud. You got Zach Allen, a stud. John Franklin Myers. Those guys are all going to, be free agents next year. So, but I will say this though, with Cortland signing, and I looked at the numbers.
So,
what'd you find?
So it's an interesting structure of the deal, and it really did free us up for a lot. So he took a big upfront amount, and they're still estimating things here, so it's not fully detailed. His current base salary here puts him at 13.5 mil this year, plus a $5 million additional restructure and a $500,000 roster per game bonus. So it just accumulates over the course of this year. So a good portion of his money is going to come this season. And then the only information that I have right now puts him at a restructured base salary going forward for like $2.5 million a year.
Wow.
Going forward as a
yeah,
cap
they're not
hit.
getting rid of him.
Now at that point there, you paid the bulk of that money up front and through the
Walmart
initial
money,
piece to get
baby.
them the bag and get them the Walmart. Exactly, that's what you get when you have Walmart money.
Doggy me.
So when you're looking at everything up front here, it's a really, really team friendly deal, and as long as you continue to get production from him, you really can't argue with the numbers. And he got what he wanted, the team got what they wanted. So that's what my whole point is there though, right? Which is the team's going to have the prorated signing bonus that's going to be going over the course of that period of time that they're going to be paying out, and that will fall directly on the team if they were to cut him or trade him. And so it really does limit basically limit the team in terms of what they can and cannot do on a go forward when it comes to the wide receiver position.
I see what you're saying about Sutton. Like, you don't really kind of view him. I guess I'm higher on him than most people are. Like, some people I was like, I heard like yesterday or whenever, they're like, oh, he's mid. I'm like, come in, give me a break, man. Like, I think
Sutton
he
is in the land of very good.
Yeah, I think he is really good. I think he is a wide receiver one for the Broncos. There's just elite, other wide receiver ones on other teams that kind of overshadow him. But I think he's like, I was hoping that he would hit free agency next year, but hope and wish, one hand and crap another, and see which one fills up first. But I think it was a smart move by the Broncos locking him up. He's solid, in my opinion.
Ultimately here, Sutton has done right by the team throughout the entirety of his time with the team.
Yeah,
he got an $18 million a year contract along with him and Tim Patrick. They kind of got very similar contract deals together as a pair. And then Sutton was then extended. Patrick was released. So look, it's a good thing to have a veteran wide receiver like Sutton. My only concern with Sutton is that he suffered a little bit as a result of some of his injuries, and I'm not certain that he's the best wide receiver that you necessarily want to teach guys, because he doesn't really have the complete full route tree that he runs. He's typically exclusively been on the outside for the most part. Whereas when you get some of these other wide receivers that transition between inside, outside, etc., they tend to have a little bit more variety in their route running abilities, and they can do a lot more. Sutton, though, is a true leader on the team. He's a steadfast guy. He's a lunch pail guy. He's always done right. He's never said, awful or bad things. He's the dude that you want on your team overall because he's not ruffling feathers and he's not causing distractions on the team, and he can set a good example in that regard. So I'm completely torn overall on it. I'm simply looking at this from a pure, like 100% pure football perspective, which is he going to knock the top off of a defense? Not so much anymore. Is he going to run an absolute perfect polished route tree? Yes and no. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But he does a lot of good things, and he can do a lot of good things, and he's a sure-handed wide receiver, which as a young rookie quarterback with Bo Nix, he does need someone like that if we're going to be honest. So, like I said, I can see it from all different angles, and I'm looking at it from a long-term perspective overall when I made my comments. Not necessarily a short-term, but from a long-term.
I mean, if you were right about how they structured that contract, that's perfection in my opinion.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's a good way to do it. But I will say this, I agree with both you guys. I agree with Richie. Again, it's kind of like I see Jacoby Myers, good receiver. Yes, he's the number one on my team. Cortland's the number one on your team. Where I think, are they truly a number one on, a lot of other teams? Probably not. What's up, Long? What's up, Biggie? But it's like, I see them as like, a minus or a B plus. They're very top end number two, or it's not the pure number one, but based on where they're at, again, being the best wide receiver, yes, they are a number one. But also what I found was interesting, which totally puts, Jacoby Myers kind of the same type of player. And you look at the stats, Cortland Sutton, 1,081 yards, 81 catches, and 8 touchdowns. So you can see that he's good in the red zone. Jacoby Myers had about, less than 1,027, so 50-yard difference, had 6 more catches and 4 touchdowns. So that kind of puts it in perspective of what, based on, since they are similar players, what the Raiders are going to have to do if they want Jacoby Myers. So Sutton's contract, I think, definitely can impact the Raiders team this year as well, too.
Yeah. So those are the two big kind of news from the Broncos, and obviously I have some other stuff that I want to dig deeper into as it results from training camp and other things like that. But we're going to throw over to Chargers, talk about their news, and of course your upcoming game tomorrow night in the Hall of Fame game, which is going to be the first meaningful game in football you're going to have for your team.
Dude, I can smell it. It's so close. I'm actually excited for preseason. I mean, I plan on watching as much preseason as I can, especially teams in our division. Like, there's guys, like, I really want to – I don't know if they're going to play RJ Harvey, but I really want to see how the Broncos unveil him. And then, like, for the Raiders, like, I want to see Dante Thornton, and I want to see Besh, like, out there and stuff like that, and see how those guys, mesh and things like that. But the Hall of Fame game, I don't think the players probably particularly like it, but most of the starters are not playing. There was kind of an interesting thing that happened is Zion Johnson, they've been rotating with Bradley Bozeman as who's going to be the projected starter going into the season. Well, they're like, oh, did they bench Zion because he's now with the second team? And immediately, like, I'm in this chat, another Chargers chat I'm in, immediately I'm like, no, he's going to be starting in the Hall of Fame game, and sure as whatever, he is going to be the starter with Trey Lance, so that should be interesting. But they're pretty much, they want to see him sink or swim. Who knows who the Lions bring out there, but this is going to be great because I'm excited. Like, they brought in a lot of weapons for Herbert this year, a lot of young guys. Marion Hampton, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Trey Harris, Aronde Gaston. They're all playing, from what I'm understanding, is they're all playing in this Hall of Fame game. So I'm really eager to see what these guys can do. Obviously, it's not going to be with Justin. It's going to be with Trey Lance. But Trey Lance has been playing pretty good at camp, albeit it is camp. and some teams handle camp differently. Like I was watching, I think I saw some stuff with the Broncos, and I saw some stuff with the Cowboys, like how they were running camp in these first few days, and it seemed to be a little more up tempo than Jim was doing 2 weeks ago. So, I think everybody handles camp and does it a little differently. But yeah, man, I'm excited. Tomorrow on NBC, 8 o'clock. So should be good. And other than that, camp news. I was trying to think. There really wasn't much. It's just oh, so and so made a highlight over this guy. So and so is like
Mhm.
one of our rookies, Jack. Cam Hart. Seems to be
Yep.
getting the short end of the stick, going on these one-on-ones with these wide receivers. And as a cornerback, you already had a disadvantage, right? There's no pressure on the quarterback, and everybody's like, Cam Hart's getting burned. Like, why do I keep seeing Cam Hart getting burned? And I'm like, look, it's the drill is set up for the wide receiver to begin with. You know what I mean? And the kid
Right.
played really good last season as a rookie. I'm not worried about him unless he's dealing with something. As long as he's not going to the ground, because he doesn't need another shoulder injury. I think he's on his fourth. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And as another guy will support Cam Hart, Sacktown Mike, salute brother. He's another Notre Dame fan, and he knows Cam Hart. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about him. I think Cam Hart's going to play well for your team. I really do.
The one guy I think people are really excited about is that KLS guy, the Keandre Lambert Smith. He was I believe a fifth rounder, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but he started out at Penn State and then went to Auburn. And I guess Auburn was a shit show with QB play, right? But or one of these schools was. So he seems to be, as of now, right? Like, who knows, right? He seems to be kind of like a steal in the draft so far, because this guy tracks the ball really well. He's got great speed. He's shifty. So he runs that 4.3. Obviously, he's not as tall as what you guys all got at that rookie coming in Vegas, but
Yeah, Thornton.
yeah, should be excited to see him. Let's see, a tight end should be number one. They don't have the speed. Yeah, I agree. But other than that, I mean, kind of
I was
talked
going to
about a
ask
lot.
you about Zion. So he's running with the twos. So again, an ex-Raider player. Where's Andre James? Is he number 3 right now?
I'm glad you mentioned him. So Andre James was kind of like thrown to the side for a while. Like, nobody heard about him, and they kept doing this back and forth with Bozeman and Zion at camp. Albeit Zion wasn't doing it in padded practices, he was doing it more on like 7-on-9s and things like that. And then all of a sudden, like a few days ago, they're like, Andre James is now in the mix as competing with these other guys. I think that was Harbaugh. I think it was Harbaugh that said it. I'm not sure if it was him or the OC Roman. So that's kind of interesting, because Charter fans are like scared to death of this interior, especially on the left side with Bozeman and Zion, and rightfully so. We saw it all last season. It was the weak link in that offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
But there's factors that play into it. The running game wasn't what it should have been, right? And the offensive weapons Justin was throwing to weren't the best, right? It was pretty much all season. It was Lad McConkey or Will Dissly, and Will Dissly is a blocking tight end. So there's some factors that play into this, and I'm sure these coaches know what they're doing, but at the same time, you're just like, you've seen this dumb stuff. Every team, all of our teams do it every year. They keep a guy, and you're like, why? Why wouldn't you draft somebody, or why wouldn't you grab another guy in free agency? So that's kind of concerning, but I'm glad that they're going to let him start out there and let him sink or swim against the Lions, who are a well-coached team. But we'll see what the Lions are this year, losing 2 coordinators. But
Yeah, they may take a little step back on that, but yeah, they got a lot of talent, so it'll be a good matchup.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch. I mean, I don't really keep score. Just want to see these guys.
Hey, that's the great thing about preseason. is you get to see a lot of the players that you probably won't see in the regular season. So you get to see what they're kind of all about.
Essentially, these guys are auditioning for all the teams, for all 32 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this whole preseason, all these guys that are running out there that, we talked about weeks ago is, potentials to make the roster or not. They're just auditioning, and it's a chance. And the Chargers, the vets may not like it, but I'm sure these rookies, they got 4 games, which we're all used to growing up. Remember, we'd bitch and moan about how long preseason was. Now I'm like, hey, the 4 games doesn't seem so bad, So it's extra time for these guys to get their names out there and see what happens.
Right. It's like, and again, you're not going to with Slater getting his, record signing contract. It's like, you don't want to put him out there, in a preseason game and, something happened and he gets hurt.
No, they are. So last season, Justin, remember, had that foot injury, and I don't think he played 1 preseason snap. And I think this season they're going to have the first team offense. What game it is, I have no clue, but they'll have them run a few series or something out there. But Slater getting that contract, that was last week's news, but I know you weren't here. That's a sigh of relief because everybody wanted him to get paid. We really, Charger fans are big fans of his. I mean, that was a huge contract, and the next tackle is going to just top that. It just seems like everybody's topping everything these days, right? You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see.
It's like, who's the next guy that's going to break it? I look at with when Max Crosby in the very beginning, they signed him to that record-breaking contract. That is the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. And then you look, 3 weeks later, and then it was Myles Garrett who got like $4 million per year more. Yeah. And then, coming after that, then you get, what's the name? Watts getting his contract, which even broke that record. So I wonder who the next, left tackle in the league that's going to get that type of money. So you're right. It just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking.
It kind of not our news, but it is our news because we are in the West. Oh God, this guy that everybody let the Chiefs draft, that they could have found their starting left tackle, that Simmons guy out of Ohio State. The stuff I've seen with him at camp, like handling easily the guys at the edge, and mostly was Gillette. I think it was their 3rd round pick, edge guy. But there's been some interesting highlights coming out of Chiefs camp, and I'm not too thrilled about it because they're looking pretty solid at that tackle spot.
Yeah, I like Simmons. That's why when we did our mock draft, he was my first pick in the 2nd round. And he's a good player. Yeah, sucks that the Kansas City Chiefs got him. Sucks that you guys re-signed Slater for, now I got to face him, and Rich has got to face him. We all got to face him for the next 4 or 5 years. It's just like, he's good.
It's 4 years, and it's kind of weird because I was wondering, I was like, why wouldn't it be 5 years with like a void year? And then there's a guy that does a lot of Chargers content, and he said that I think the year his contract's up, the NFL cap is predicted to like explode or something, like go like over $300 million a year or something like that, which that could make that contract why it's 4 years, right? Okay, so Richie knows what I'm talking about.
Dark. That's
if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, DZ, the thing you're talking about is the gambling money that's coming into the NFL. I think that's where it takes the next big jump.
2030 or 2027. I briefly looked at it, but I mean, this is crazy. This is getting crazy. Like the amount of cap space, and and then there's talk of expanding the rosters and getting more teams in the league. Like, buckle up, man. This is going to be interesting these next few years.
Definitely an interesting ride.
I think that what the NFL is laying the groundwork. The NFL is laying the groundwork, in my opinion, for like the EU division, or even something along those lines.
There was like a
I
thing
think that
about
they're
that, right? Real quick, there was a thing about the having a teams in Europe, like because we know they did in the past, but they didn't play against the other teams in the States, right? They supposedly, and this is like tinfoil, but not really tinfoil hat. They're waiting for this certain type of airliner to be developed because you remember the Concorde jet, right? You could go from New York to Paris in like an hour and a half or something, but there was problems with radiation or whatever. They're waiting for this jet airliner that's supposed to be in the works that is going to cut like travel time in half. And if that happens, I could see that being a green light for teams in Europe and then playing, in the States as well, because that will cut to travel time and less fatigue on the players and whatnot.
the other thing to keep in mind, and this is going to be super interesting, is the league already has a quarterback problem, like a
Yeah,
big quarterback problem.
the
If you
play.
expand out the teams, truly expand out the teams, and this is what the Texans ran into, right, for years, is it takes a long time for you to get that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
mean, dudes are jumping
and
around
the
in college, Richie. Like,
uh-huh.
yeah, man. No
Well,
It takes a
development.
long time.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the draft, right? You look at if you want to, try to get your quarterback, you're talking giving up like 3 first-round draft picks and other commodities to try to get one of those guys. So, yeah, Richie, it's a big issue already right now in today's NFL. And if they expanded it, oh my Lord.
I'm gonna answer this guy's question real quick. Rice, I got him as a camp cut, in August 27th or whatever it is when they do the cuts. That or maybe getting re-signed to the practice squad. He's definitely not making this team. Not that he's not making the 53, not with the guys they brought in, and not from what I've seen from him so far.
I'm not familiar with Brandon Rice. What position did he play?
He's a wide receiver. He's Jerry Rice's kid.
Oh, Jerry Rice is okay. Now I know.
He's I don't know. It's not looking too good for him. So that's what I'll say. We'll see in preseason. There's plenty of games for him to kind of redeem himself from his rookie year.
Yep. So let's dig into the upcoming game. What do you expect to see?
Well, I checked it out, and believe it or not, people are betting on the Hall of Fame game. Wow.
Really?
Yeah, we are underdogs to the Detroit Lions, and I was in a point spread. I believe it's like 34 and a half points or something, or 32 or whatever it was. I just want to see football. They're probably going to run some really vanilla schemes, but Trey Lance is competing also to get back in the league, to become a backup, and I think it's like the Coach Harbaugh said Trey Lance is going to run that first half, and then maybe like the first drive in the third quarter, and then they're going to have the rookie DJ, and I cannot pronounce his last name, Ugalele or whatever, who's also looking really good in camp. But they traded last year for Taylor Heineke to be Justin's backup, and I think they're just going to stay with that. They re-signed him. I think they're pretty happy with him, but this is also going to be an audition for Lance. I think they like him, so they're probably going to let him run some off-script stuff, some scrambles and whatnot. But and I'm interested to see who they are putting at guard and tackle. Like, are they bringing in the guy they drafted, in the 6th round, Branson Taylor? Or is he going to play? Like, so it'd be interesting to see these depth guys, and maybe some of the rookie Jamari Caldwell, the Chargers D lineman guy. So yeah, I'm just expecting probably some really basic, vanilla, sloppy ball, to be honest with you, and I'll be happy as hell about it.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get to watch your team play before everyone else gets to watch their teams play. So
I mean, I remember with the Raiders, I think it was like 22, the Raiders winning the Hall of Fame game. I was like excited to watch. It was the Raiders and Jags, and I was like, I gotta watch this. Like, I was like, yes, I'm watching the Raiders, I'm watching the Jags, I'm happy about it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, football's back.
Yeah, man. I'm getting tired of watching baseball every night, even though I'm ready to get my heart broken every Sunday.
Right? It's like, I will say this, Richie and DZ. I was even watching, Raiders YouTubers like play Madden.
Oh yeah,
It's football, right? It's just football. So it's like, and you got your young cats that are on the team and their updated rosters and stuff, just to kind of see it, to watch anything. I'm sure everyone, you guys especially, and everyone else in the chat, they're all looking forward to it too. It's like, get this stuff. Let's get it going. Let's get that time frame moved up. We want to see some football.
Dude, that must be like before my time, but I've seen a lot of channels where they'll just stream Madden, and there'll be a Charger guy or a Raider guy, and they'll just stream Madden, and the kids flock to it like moths to a light. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't get it, but whatever. To each their own.
Even the old men like me, it's like flock to it because it's just football. There's so much dead period when the season's over to get where we are right now, where we got something really to look forward to, when your team plays. And you're playing a good team, so it's going to make it exciting. Two top echelon teams. Again, we know it's all backups, and see who the young kids are going to be, but it's actual football.
Yeah, man. Couldn't agree more, Richie. I mean, Jack. Sorry.
So I think it's probably a good thing, Jack, to circle back with news from camp from your Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, you're going to have to work in new D-line players, although you were already kind of doing that with Wilkins not really kind of out there anyway.
Right.
So curious as to news and other information there, and we can go from there. So let's hear what you got.
So, the player that kind of took over for Wilkins last year was Jonah Lalu. And, even, like Max Crosby says, he hasn't even scratched the surface yet. He doesn't see it yet to the young guy. But right now it seems like he's the one that's taken over. And, it's kind of funny in Raiders chat, we say come, C-O-M, with the capital P, Pete, compete. So, the whole thing that's been going on, which has been very interesting, is that, he's mixing up everybody. First stringers, second stringers, even third stringers, even a guy that I said that was probably going to get cut potentially this year in Eichenberg. He's been out there running with the number ones for a little bit.
It's a linebacker, right?
Yeah, he's a linebacker. But so it's like, probably the most interesting, which is getting the most buzz and, talking about, is JPJ is splitting time with Jordan Meredith, which 2 years ago, I said he might get cut. So Jordan Meredith is actually getting more time right now with the number ones than JPJ. So a lot of Raider fans going, hey, what's going on, with JPJ? Why is he not getting the snaps? All I got to say is that Pete is going to mix up. And I think that's the difference between the head coach that we have and Pete Carroll than our two previous coaches that we've had on the team, where they kind of stick, okay, you're my number one, you're my number two, we're going to stick to this. And I think, excuse me, that's where Pete makes, it fun, because he's mixing up. He wants to see, okay, so what if JPJ went down and you got to put in Jordan Meredith? Well, he's got to work with these guys, right? To protect your biggest asset, which is your quarterback. So the mixing up of the players has been kind of exciting. And I think from doing that as a head coach, you keep all your guys involved. They want to, impress. They want, again, you're auditioning for 32 other teams, but you also want to see, hey, maybe I can steal this job. Pete's got that, mentality. I don't care where I drafted you. If you show up and you perform better than the guy, that ahead of you, behind you, wherever, then you're going to get an opportunity to play. So I really like what he's doing, and everyone seems excited, for player wise when they do their, press conferences about that. And so I really like what he's doing. It's definitely a mentality change. It's a culture change, but you really, he'll keep you guessing. And, the one thing I thought was really kind of interesting, and I forgot his name all of a sudden. Jamal Adams, a guy who's who Pete Carroll, had drafted in Seattle, or no, I'm sorry, traded for from the Jets to get him in Seattle, and then re-signing him. I was like, why are you signing Jamal Adams? It doesn't make much sense. He's kind of long in the tooth, and he plays safety, and he's not a good cover safety. But they switched his position, so he's no longer a safety. He's a linebacker.
And I called this. I don't know if I said this last week's show or when you were last on, Jack. I said he looks like he's going to be a box safety or something.
Mhm.
They're going to bring him down.
Last
There's
week's
no
show.
way they're going to. Yeah, there's no way they're
Last
keeping him
week's
at his
show.
current position.
Yeah,
So
I think that over his career, he's had
No.
like 20 sacks. So
he's got
yeah,
height. He's 6'1", but he's a little light. So I'm wondering, like, is Pete going to have him? Are they going to be like, hey, gain like a couple pounds, 5-10 pounds or something? Because he's only like 212 or 210 or something like that.
yeah, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah,
because,
rather than the weight room, they're going to ask him to spend some time in the lunchroom.
Yeah, possibly.
right? Yeah. I can see that. And it was like,
Rather
it was
than the
very
weight room, they're going to
interesting.
ask him to spend a little bit more time in the lunchroom. Yeah.
and before Jamal Adams, so I just like to kind of circle back. So last year with Patrick Graham, again, the same defensive coordinator we had last year. So the Raiders ran, primarily a 4-2-5. And I've been screaming for a slot corner. I've been screaming because Harmon is not the answer. So then I hear a lot of stuff about, we're going to probably run 3 safeties, and then Jeremy Chinn's going to move up, and then you'll have 2 other safeties on the field. Now I'm starting to hear, okay, now we're going to do, again, maybe do the 4-3-4, but maybe we'll have 3 linebackers on. So who knows? We may have 3 linebackers on one play, 3 safeties on another play. What's up, Furpo? Salute, brother. Raiders. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do. It's like, it's so there's not any information coming out because the beat writers won't talk about, they don't want to hurt, tell what the Raiders are actually doing. So I have no idea what they're going to be running. But it seems like a lot of either 3 linebackers or it's going to be a lot of 3 safeties. I will say the one player, with their crazy signings, they let go of 5 guys, they picked up 4. And the one that really kind of, I was like, wow, why did you do this? And I got to look up his name because I forgot it. Mello Dobson was one of their top free UDF free signings. And he was predicted he could have went in the 6th round, but they got him as UDFA. So we thought that was like a really good, pickup. But he got cut when all those massive transactions. So I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to dissect what, Pete's trying to do. But you can kind of see the writing on the wall now that, time has passed. But, in the moment, at the time, it's like some of the moves didn't make any sense. But I will say, as probably most Raider Nation will say this, in Pete we trust, just for the simple fact that, he knows what the hell he's doing. So besides that, again, just like your teams, one guy has a good day, next day, bad day. It's been all over the place. Everyone's either making plays, not making plays. And another thing that was kind of interesting that, I've heard, like, Aiden O'Connell was getting some snaps with the first string. So then it's like, is there a quarterback controversy? No, there's not. But if your quarterback goes down, you got to get your backup to play with the number 1s that are going to be out there.
Well, what Matt, I believe, said up here kind of made sense. You're talking about Meredith and JPJ. Like, Meredith is probably going to be your starting, center in preseason games.
Makes sense, Matt.
But for
you
for
want to get him some
fans,
experience because still protecting a valuable quarterback. And again, I'm sure they'll probably with Genty, since he's a rookie, they'll probably run him too, and you want to protect those assets that you have. So you want to give him some snaps.
That highlight of Genty doing that one-on-one with White was hilarious. Like, White just sat down and was like, "Yeah, I give up." Did you see that one, Jack?
No, I didn't see it.
They were running some one-on-one drill between like a short space, kind of like simulating the A gap or B gap or whatever. And it was just Genty just did a little move and got tiny, and Devin White just slid on his butt and just sat there like there was nothing he could do about it. Genty's
And
gonna, yeah, he's gonna be a problem, man. This guy's
And,
shit.
and I'm glad you brought this up too with the Devin White. Again, that was a guy I'm like, okay, you're signing him for the very league minimum. He hasn't even, played. He didn't even get a play when he was with the Eagles. And, he's not getting really any playing time. He's not a great coverage linebacker. But, Pete says he's back, and he says he's back. So I'm excited about, the potential with having a Devin White, on the field. Because if he's back, then we know he's really good. If he's not back, then we know he's really, really bad. So time will tell.
There was something I don't know if Pete said it like this past week, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The Raider chat, but something I was not too happy to hear. He said something like, I've won 10 games everywhere I've gone every season, and I was just man, damn, like it's a pretty bold statement. The coach is coming out saying like, So that's
a bold statement, Cotton. That's a bold statement.
Yeah, man.
That is a bold statement.
So
I have an interesting take, Jack. Sorry, just real quick on the Genty thing.
Yeah.
I have an interesting take on him. I actually think that Genty is going to have mostly good games, but I think against certain defenses, he is going to be unbelievably frustrated because of the fact that he's kind of coming in with a little bit of I'm the best and therefore, and I do think that he's going to kind of have the welcome to the NFL rookie moment once or twice over the course of this season, where whether it be a guy like Chris Jones, whether it be some other defensive ends or even linebackers, where he's just like, oh, in college, I just rock these fools. And he's going to get destroyed. And yes, I do think that there is potential for Genty to struggle against really hard-hitting inside linebackers that square up really well and don't turn their shoulders. So a guy like Singleton, for example, he squares his shoulders before tackling, which really makes it very difficult for a running back to run around him. You also have guys like Roach and DJ Jones on the Broncos, which I think are going to cause Genty some challenges and some problems. JPJ is going to be a great blocker. He's a very aggressive blocker at center. He's a fantastic pickup for the Raiders, but you also just have to look at the versatility within the division and the teams that you're playing against. So unless Pete has an answer for, say, the pass rush that the Broncos put up last year, in fairness, there's other guys that are on the Broncos roster now above and beyond what we already had last year that have shown out in camp, which I'm going to talk about once Jack has finished the Raiders here, that are I think is really going to cause some challenges for the Raiders and frankly the rest of the folks within the division and the NFL this year. The Broncos already did well last year on the defensive side of the ball, especially at the beginning portion of the year. And I think it's only going to get better this year, in my opinion, with the additions we've made, as well as some of the draft picks we got, who have done quite well actually in camp. And I think you're going to see them also show out in preseason games because, like you said, that's where those guys are going to get their playing time. That's where we're going to start sharpening, cutting their teeth, and that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to be really interesting. So my prediction, he's going to struggle with like one or two teams and one or two games.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think he's going to get real pissed real quick.
I think I like the kid pissed off. He'll probably run even harder. And I agree with you, and I disagree with you. He actually got interviewed. Again, they do the press conference. They asked him, hey, have you had that welcome moment to the NFL? He's like, no, not yet. But I will say this. For as good as he is, everything that I've heard other players say about him, he is super humble. So he doesn't have that prima donna mentality. So
you mean Genty?
Yeah, he doesn't have it. Well, he's kind of more of a quiet guy.
His public comments and stuff say otherwise, right? So, I mean, I just think we need to see how he handles himself on the field. Certain guys are humble in the fact that they treat the course correction of coming into the NFL, and they treat it as a challenge that they accept, and they basically push themselves even further.
Sure.
Other guys see that challenge where they go against guys that they're just not used to, and their heads start spinning. They don't know where to go. They're like, I don't understand. In college, I was the best, and now I'm not. Like, I don't. And they just start losing their minds, right?
Right.
The running back position is also one of those positions where almost immediately right?
Correct.
Like
I was just
almost
going to say that.
immediately. Like there is no, hey, wait 2 years and the guy's going to show out. No. Like you got like 1 year where you see decent play, and by year 2 you better have excellent play or you need to move on.
I mean, I do know a lot of these running backs that come into the league, and I agree with you, but kind of like a clap back at that a little bit. A lot of these running backs that come in the league in college, they're not pass blocking. You know what I mean? So that's huge in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I'm pretty sure Genty, and I'm pretty sure Omer and Hampton, they had to do a lot of pass blocking in college. I'm not sure about RG Harvey at UCF, but that is a big factor. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a guy, Kamani Vidal, who they drafted last season, who struggled at pass blocking, and they barely played him, but he was electric when he got going. There's some flashes, there's some juice in there. But yeah, it's not fucking. But yeah, we'll see. But Jack, kind of, how you were saying about Genty, I don't know what Richie's talking about because maybe Richie saw something I didn't see, but Hampton is kind of like what you're saying. Genty is. He's super quiet and like just very like, yep. Everybody's saying like he barely talks. He doesn't like. He's just like all business. Like all his pressers are like 4 or 5 minutes. That's it. And other guys go on for like 17 minutes just talking and rambling. So it'd be interesting to see these two guys. All three of our running backs. We're all pretty hot commodities coming into the draft. So it'd be interesting how this shakes out.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing all your guys' running backs and see what they do in preseason for sure. If I can see the games, but that was pretty much it. For what's going on in Raiders camp. So Richie, yeah, take it on over.
So, obviously, there's been some issues with my team. So we got Singleton and we got Drew Sanders. So that's another thing I forgot to mention in the earlier part of the show. Obviously, Drew Sanders got, pretty much KO'd for the majority or all of the season, if we're going to be honest.
That's a foot thing, right, Richie?
Yeah. I mean, I was on another Broncos pod and I called it. I look, this is one of those times I wish I was always wrong, but like I've just seen enough to know enough.
You're not the first one to say that. There's other Bronco fans who are like, just cut this dude. Like
Sanders is a dud as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I see Sanders as Jake Butt. And so for Broncos fans who are familiar with the history of the team, Jake Butt was a tight end that had little flashes. We're like, oh, he could actually be good. But then the dude always got hurt. And so, we always used to call him Butt Hurt, right? Because he was always hurt. He had potential. He could do certain things, but he just couldn't stay on the field. Like if it wasn't one thing, it was another. And like he'd literally go from like my left toe finally got right, and then he's like, oh, now my right toe's hurt. It's like, come on, dude, like just stop it. And it's unfortunate because when he played, Jake at least he played well. Sanders, on the other hand, I actually think is worse than Jake Butt, and this is why. Sanders has some fast twitch. He's kind of quick. A little lighter, or he's big and light, but has the physicality. And so the problem is that he's kind of one of those wonky tweener roles where you think he should maybe be able to transition to outside linebacker, but he never was able to. And then you then think that he'd be a great coverage linebacker, but then he seems like he's just too slow and he doesn't read things well enough. So I almost wonder if it's like a mental thing rather than a physical thing, because I think he's got all the physical tools. I just question whether or not he has the mental ability to digest the things that are on the field.
And being at linebacker, Richie, you
Yep.
got to be able to process
Yep.
stuff quick. And that was a problem with the Chargers. We had drafted Kenneth Murray, super high. That guy could just never get it turning inside. It was just, he was
Yep.
always a second or two late.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I see Drew Sanders a lot in that role. To be quite honest, I kind of see a lot of similarities between him and Justin Simmons, not necessarily in the injury side of things, but in terms of the processing stuff. Drew Sanders, when he played really well, he played really well. And it was because he often sold out on the play. So it's like, I think it's going to be this. And he goes all in on doing the thing. And then when the play turns out that way, it looked really good on him. Right? Like he looked amazing. He's like, wow, he made a sure tackle. He did the thing. He was right where he needed to be. But then when the play wasn't exactly the way he thought it was going to be, he always kind of like fumbled the tackle, took the bad angle. Didn't he just like, there's like the little nuances within the game that you notice. And I think unfortunately, and this is kind of the difference between A and B here, Alex Singleton doesn't make those mistakes. The dude is he is everywhere always. and so, the thing is that when you have someone else to compare against on your team who is much better, you can kind of see the difference between A and B. I think it's unfortunate. I wish the kid well. I really do. I hope he's not so badly hurt that the rest of his life is negatively impacted. I truly mean that.
It's a tendon or something, right?
But no, yes, but like as much as I am very harsh on my team and some of the guys that are on it, like I wish none of them ill. Like you know what I mean? Like these guys are young guys. They are certainly, in their 20s, like early mid 20s. They have so much life ahead of them that at some point, just because you had the physical gifts to do the thing doesn't necessarily mean that your body can withstand the physical abuse that the sport that you have done so well to date. Like, certain guys have the genetics to do it and certain guys don't.
Right.
I mean, that's unfortunate, but it is true whether you like it or not. There's a reason why certain guys can play for such a long period of time and certain guys can't, right? I mean, who was the dude we were just talking about? The dude from Colorado, the guy's like 6'6", 6'7", defensive end or defensive tackle. He's with the Ravens, I think, or the Cardinals now. Anyways, he's been playing for like 15 years at the defensive end position, and the guy's just massive. Like the dude's just like Calais Campbell.
Yes. I was gonna say
Calais
when you
Campbell,
said 6'6", it threw me. 6'7", yeah.
Yeah, like the dude is just an enormous human being, and guys that are that large should not be able to play football that is so abusive for this long. Like, right? Like it's just like it's just like you almost want to go and ask him, like, you realize that you should be done by now, right? Like, and he's still playing. Like, if you look at his stats, he's still in like a pretty reasonable statistical category in terms of play on the field. I mean, so good on him,
especially with his age.
I mean, and then factor in his age, the dude's a superstar as far as I'm concerned, given how old he is and how well he's still playing, right? But I digress. Ultimately speaking, Drew Sanders went down. That was no surprise to me. I called it. I didn't think he was going to make the team and the roster. That brings me, though, to the positive side of all of this, which is I have been saying for some time now, and those who follow the podcast know that I am quite high on my Denver Broncos undrafted free agents at the inside linebacker position. I think the Broncos brought in some dudes that are absolute they're going to be spectacular for my team. And lo and behold, in the last couple of days, we have had some flashes from some of those dudes. We have had flashes from undrafted free agent inside linebacker from last year, Lavelle Bailey, who is absolutely just making the rounds in terms of pushing. And there's real talk within Broncos country right now that dude is now basically the starting inside backer until proven otherwise now. Or at least in that discussion or in that rotation. Like he's number 3 at this point. So you have Greenlaw, Singleton, and Lavelle Bailey. And the word from everything I've heard from all of the folks is that dude is killing it. And again, you talk about value. Undrafted free agent last year, now in the discussion as a starter at the inside backer position, you've already won. Right? You've already won.
Yeah, that's huge
and
when
then,
you get UDFAs that show out
Right.
and impress. It makes you wonder, like, going, how did players like that get missed by 32 GMs and you got 7 rounds of draft picks? You know what I mean?
well, it depends on how willing other teams are to spend money on in-depth drafting in college football. So, for example, a lot of these UDFAs, they go to smaller schools.
Yeah, he played in the
And
Mountain West. That's probably why.
And so then the question is that how deep do you guys go into your scouting process? Some teams go all the way down in depth. My Denver Broncos have been infamous for finding guys in these smaller schools. Like, it's been their bread and butter. Quinn Miners is a great example of a smaller school dude who is killing it at the NFL level in terms of play on field. In addition to that, just on the inside backer position, we're also hearing some real big rumblings here from Jordan Turner as well as Kareem Reed at the inside backer undrafted free agents. So again, like, we're now talking 3 undrafted free agents between last year and this year that are making real noise and real splashes on my Denver Broncos in terms of inside backer play. And if you can find legitimate starters, and I don't mean fill-in starters, like guys that you just hope that can kind of fill the gap until your other guy comes back. If you're able to get an absolute stud at the inside backer position where you're able to get them on a cost-controlled UDFA contract for your team for 4 years, you have won effectively, because
That's
you're
a
not
win.
paying them. Like, that's a huge win. And so those guys are going to be, I think, core special teamers. I think with the new rules for the special teams kickoffs and everything else, having those bigger body guys, and these, in this case, you're getting sure tacklers at the inside backer position. We also have Singleton, who's hurt with the thumb injury. And so if you have 2 UDFA inside backers that you really like, you're going to feel less inclined to feel rushed to get Singleton out there, because you're going to have guys that you feel very comfortable with on the field to fill in, to go alongside Dre Greenlaw, who has also made the news throughout the last 2 to 3 days at the camp for his play on the field, which is one of the guys that you're commenting on earlier, DZ, in the show, for the Broncos winning the offseason. He's one of those players that is in that conversation as to why the Broncos did so well in the offseason.
Him and Hufanga.
Him and
I
Hufanga,
hated
exactly.
when you guys got Greenlaw.
Right. Another guy that I wanted to bring forward that has really come out and shown out in the last little bit is a guy, Q Robinson. He was originally thought of as only a special team addition and then a developmental guy on the outside linebacker position. That being said, every single report, except for today, that has come out from my Denver Broncos, Q Robinson has been near the tippy top of that short list of guys that has just outperformed, consistently outperformed.
Heard his name.
And that is, I'm not going to lie, kind of scary, I think, for the rest of the division, because there is going to be at least 2 to 3 outside backers, I think, for my Denver Broncos that are going to be at minimum starting rotational guys on other teams.
Sure.
That is how deep I think the outside backer room is right now for my Denver Broncos. Keep in mind that Jonah Ellis had one of the best statistical years of a mid to late round outside backer last year, and he's already projected to kind of have a even better year this year at the outside backer position as well. And Jonathan Cooper, wearing number 0 for my Denver Broncos, made the news the past 2 days now for what would have been either a strip sack or a sack or tackle for loss or all three in the last 2 days, which is really, really interesting because he's a guy that most people don't think of when they think of the Broncos. They always think of Benito just because he had some splash numbers last year.
Yep.
But Jonathan Cooper was right near where Benito was. He just didn't get the credit or the recognition. He was in double-digit sacks. He had a whole whack of tackle for losses. He had a whole bunch of other stuff. He was right up there with Benito. He just didn't get the credit for it. And so I just think a lot of people keep on forgetting that the Denver Broncos had some of the best pressures and sacks and whatnot in the NFL last year.
Right.
And there's a lot
And
of
they only got
unsung
better.
heroes. And yes, they
Yeah.
only improved. And
Mhm.
I actually agree with that as well. And then we had a couple other guys from camp that were very interesting for my Denver Broncos. I'm going to quickly just do a quick hit here. Troy Franklin is another name that I think that we're going to see some major improvements on. And then we also saw Zach Allen, and there has been some negative, which I think is an important thing to bring up, Jack, and this is going to be interesting for you. Audric Estime.
Oh, my boy.
There has not been good news from him, generally speaking, from
Wow.
my Denver Broncos in terms of his performance.
Yeah, all I've been hearing is JK and RJ.
JK and RJ, that is it.
That's
And Audric Estime, really and truly, if I'm going to be honest, in my opinion, is on the outside looking in.
Oof.
And that is absolutely unbelievable to me to say aloud because he was just drafted last year.
Right.
Like he was just drafted last year, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because Sean Payton's system has got more moving parts than he's used to processing, which is possible, by the way.
It's
I'm
possible.
willing to say, look, I get it. Like, if you're constantly or struggling to kind of keep yourself up to speed, you can very well find yourself in a huge hole where you're just like, I have to think too much and I'm not doing well. And if you bring in other guys that process things faster and better than you, they're going to look better than you on the field because they're not going to have to think before they do. They're just going to do.
Right. Just react.
Right. Yeah. And so either way, Estime is struggling. We'll just put it that way.
So what do you think? McLaughlin takes that third spot?
I think McLaughlin. I think what we're going to see in preseason is going to be the battle of Watson and McLaughlin.
Interesting.
Because Tyler Bidet has already shown out throughout the majority of camp for my Denver Broncos.
Forgot about Bidet.
Yeah, and he's legit too. Like he's no slouch. Like he could well be snatched up by another team for sure. Because other teams are sick of seeing him flash in certain games and saying, "Who's that dude?" So I could totally see him coming in on another team that is maybe they lose a running back or two in the preseason, or maybe they find that the running backs are really struggling and they want like a sure guy that they think they can plug and play and they want to pick him up. So I actually think the Broncos are going to be very cautious with Bidet this year in terms of not necessarily whether or not they're going to play him. I think he's going to definitely play a good chunk of preseason and whatnot because they're going to want to see what he can do on the field. But I think they're going to be very cautious about cutting him outright because I think he's got enough film and tape where teams have seen how well he can do, and they don't want to lose him. They were able to keep him last year, I think, in my opinion, because he was hurt. So
I could see though, if Estime gets
how many running backs
down,
are you going to keep?
I believe 4.
I could see Estime getting poached unless they figure out a way not to let that happen. I could see him being poached.
My gut reaction, to be quite honest, is going to be that they're going to trade Estime for a loss effectively in terms of where he was drafted. They're going to just trade him for like a mid-high round draft pick just to get him gone.
Future pick or something.
Well, I'm even thinking they could see next year 6 or 7 or something like that.
Because he's still under the rookie contract.
Because he's still under the rookie contract. You're going to have another team or another roster that's going to be like, I promise I can make him work out well. And do you know what? I think he probably could do better on another team, maybe with an offense that isn't as complex. But the fact of the matter is, Sean Payton is here to stay because he has shown out and done well enough for my Denver Broncos that they are not letting him go at all. And so,
absolutely.
so that the whole point here is Estime better shape up, or he's going to be shipped out, in my opinion.
It's kind of funny you brought that up because, with the whole Najee thing and the fireworks incident, it's, like they signed Naheem Hines, and then there's Vidal, and some other guys, Haskins. You want to see, like, all right, because nobody knows when he's going to start playing again, right? Like, he's been walking at practice. I think he's been there 3 days. First day, he had his hood up, super tight. He had the biggest sunglasses you could buy. And then, like, the last day that everybody saw him, he just had a ball cap on and some normal sunglasses. So it's like nobody's seen his eye, none of the reporters, mind you. And so, we were all expecting, like, okay, him and Hampton, we don't need to see anything, right? Like, just let's see these other guys. Now we're like, oh, man, here we go. We got a mess. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in preseason and, with Naheem and all these. Oh, Sanders, that's another guy. God, how did I leave him out? Guy I was really high on coming in, the UDFA guy. He finally showed up to camp, at the same time they said he'd be here in a week. He showed up in a week. So I think he got back a little bit too late to show up in this game in Canton. But that's another guy I'm going to really be paying attention to in preseason as well. See him battle, because we don't know. There's uncertainty with Najee. I don't know. You could run out one-eyed running back out there. It's not going to be good.
Yeah. So DZ, what have you heard of? Again, we all heard about the fireworks and stuff, but did he lose any vision out of the eye? I mean, how much damage was done?
He said his agent was the first one to come out. Some weird crypto account is the one who broke this news, by the way. And one of the guys that I in a chat with picked up on it, and everybody thought he was full of crap. And to be honest, he wasn't. They're like, oh, Najee blew his eye out up in Antioch. And people were like, who are you? Like, you're nobody, whatever. And then it came out a few days later, but his agent said it was a superficial eye injury. And if you look up what the term superficial eye injury is, I've had one where I've had metal scraped out of one of my retinas. But my eye healed within hours, right? I was ready to rock, but the numbing drops. So him still wearing sunglasses, that might be an optometrist kind of thing where they're like, protect your eye is still healing. That could play in a factor. They treat these athletes like, gods, I guess. So they're probably, every precaution as they can with these guys. But we don't know, man. I think what happened is they probably had a faulty firework blow up because I think one of his friends lost a bunch of fingers, and it must have been big enough. I'm assuming a mortar. I don't know if you've played with fireworks. I love fireworks, and it was big enough to blow your fingers off, and something got in his eye, and enough for him to be taken in an ambulance, which is crazy because I did a side-by-side of his face at minicamp and the guy that they had on the newsreel, and they had two different noses and two different foreheads. So I was like, that's not Najee. It's a guy that looks like Najee. It was him. So it was really weird, man.
That is weird.
I don't know. And it sucks because, it's like, it's kind of funny to think about. You guys will get a kick out of it. It's like the Charger curse, man. It's like this guy was an Iron Man in Pittsburgh, right? Of all places. Like, they were known to be like the black and blue league these last few years. This guy was stayed healthy for 4 years, rushed for 1,000 yards, comes to LA, goes and visits his family up north in NorCal, and boom. So who knows? But his agent said he'd be ready for the season, but who really knows, man, if we could trust these guys, right?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy because Antioch is like an hour away, maybe a little bit more from where I'm at right now. So, yeah, it's local.
Yeah. And, another thing is funny. I don't know if I brought this up. The street that he did this on was Spanos Way, and the Spanos are the owner of the Chargers. It's just you can't make this shit up.
It's not
Sometimes.
funny. It's not funny that he got hurt and his friend lost his finger, but it's just ironic though, right? Spanos Way.
Well, look, I mean, let's be honest. They have at least 9 reasons why they shouldn't have played with fireworks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Come on,
I wonder if he
that
got
was
fined
funny.
too.
That was funny. But the other thing to think about here is that this is, I think, going to impact Najee's reputation in the NFL because he had
It's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, but he had a squeaky clean image really coming into this as being kind of the lunch pail kind of guy.
He had a chip on his shoulder too. That's what he was saying.
And then on top of that, just kind of above and beyond, if there was any damage done to his eye, you really have you really have some challenges because he's in a very high contact position where there's no real protection for the running back in football in terms of the rules. Like they're kind of the throwaway position, right? In terms of the rule book.
Yeah.
And
shoot up and spit out.
So if there's any like retina issues or a floater, which you can look that up in terms of like eye conditions and stuff. There is a whole host of real, like, I mean, legitimate conditions, like not just like, hey, what about this? I mean, these are quite common, quite legitimate, and it's not necessarily outrageous to think. I mean, the other thing is that if he had shrapnel or anything that kind of got spun up and ended up getting lodged in there, it could get dislodged and it can also impact his eye and vision going forward. And one wrong hit, one big hit, and that can basically cause him to not be able to see out of that eye at all.
I mean, that happens to fighters, right? That's a popular thing that with their retinas getting loose, I guess, quote unquote, and then getting a shot in the head, and then boom, there goes that retina, detaches, and next thing you know, you're seeing white lights, and then possibly blind for the rest of your life. I mean, there are surgeries where they can reattach them, but it's a really super delicate process. Only a few surgeons do it. It's creepy, but I'll tell you something.
And boxers and football players, just because of the car collision that they're going through on a nightly basis,
no bueno, man.
They are not the best candidates for that surgery, my man. They are not the
like I was listening to a podcast a couple years ago, and there was a guy who's had both his retinas detach and had to get them surgically repaired back in or whatever. And I think he has like limitations on everything he can do. Like, I mean, I don't even think he can get on a boat or something, like it's that serious with your eyes. But I had when I was welding and I got a piece of metal stuck in one of my eyes, this eye. And the guys I was working for were like, oh, you just got flash burn. It'll go away in 24 hours, 48 hours. And, trying to sleep, what feels like sand is on your eyeball. It sucks because you start getting like saliva going down the back of your throat. It sucks, right? So I went into work the next day and they're like, maybe that's not flash burn. So I went to the local like workers clinic and they're like, yeah, you got a piece of metal stuck in your eye and it's rusted. And I'm like, oh wow. So they numb your eye and you got to try to hold it open, and then they literally use a scalpel and scrape it out, put some drops in there, gave me a thing of Vicodin, right? Put a patch on it. And at the time I was driving a big lifted Suburban. I could not drive. I couldn't drive to save the life of me because you have no depth perception. And I'm like, I don't know how people who have limited vision do it because, I mean, you have to learn, right? But yeah, but I fell asleep. I took one Vicodin. I fell asleep and I woke up a few hours later, took the patch off, and it was perfectly healed. And I had my vision.
I got a question for you. How do you numb your eye? How does that?
They put drops in there.
Oh, just drops. Okay.
Yeah, there's some sort of
drugs.
Yeah, drugs. But yeah, it was scary, but they took care
drugs
of it.
Drugs are bad, okay.
But I mean, that was a little tiny piece of metal. He had an explosive, right, which is shooting at some crazy velocity and just probably hit him just right. I mean, mind you, that stuff is all, cardboard and paper, but who knows, dude? It's not looking good, but we'll see. We got a lot of time until now, until the first week of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting just how these sorts of things impact players. And I'm not going to lie, this isn't necessarily a direct knock on Najee. I think he obviously either made a mistake, did something stupid, or maybe both. But the fact of the matter is, it still is unbelievable to me how these players, even after years in the league and with millions upon millions of dollars on the line,
Yeah.
potentially of earning potential on an annual basis, which is, I mean, so far above and beyond what the average American or frankly anyone is
Right.
going to be capable of earning in their lifetime. The fact that you can't just stop acting like a fool just for a handful of years and earn your money and then go off and have fun. Right?
Yeah, I
You know what I
mean,
mean? Like,
yes, we could open up a can of worms because right now in
Mhm.
the college, in the universities in the states, like they're giving these guys, these NIL deals, big money, and they're buying Corvettes, Ferraris, Lambos, getting speeding tickets, doing the dumbest crap possible, right? And then they come in the league. But you said it. Najee kind of seemed like he had that lunch pail, that clean image, and it's just one little slip up. But I mean, we just signed another guy, Naheem Hines, who had a freak jet ski accident and hasn't played since 22 because he tore his ACL on the jet ski. That's another thing. Like, you're out there, anything could happen. I mean, it's wild, man.
It kind of seems like, the friend was probably the one, playing with the mortars. 'Cause that's how he lost his fingers, because he was so close. And it's just a shrapnel from the mortar going off, getting him in the eye.
Yeah,
So
but I
at
mean,
least it wasn't the one who actually lighting it, probably, because otherwise he would have lost his fingers. And as a running back, you definitely need your hands. That's for sure too.
it was 26 days ago and nobody's seen his eye. I'm sure the coaches have. But, July 4th, it's July 30th now. I don't know,
I have a
man.
different take on it. I think it was a Roman candle incident. I think that they were
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
shoot him at each other. I think the Roman candle blew up on the friend, and I think it ended up knocking him in the eye because his friend was shooting it at him because, people are stupid. And let's be honest, I
Guilty as
never,
charged.
like, I did the thing. Like, yes, the hi, and I look, it just happens, right? Like, you're dumb and you're a teenager, you're not doing the thing. But I certainly didn't have a, $5 or $10 million contract potentially coming
No.
my way. I didn't have any of that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
so, the risk reward piece there is not there. And I know for a fact that the NFL has courses that these players go on now as a result of players in the past, actually, who
Yeah.
have fought for these other players that are coming after them to say, you need to start teaching them about looking after their bodies, not putting themselves in stupid positions. I mean, the NFL and the NFLPA combined, this is both the league and the Players Association, makes a point of bringing in players who have done dumb crap to speak to the new players coming into the league to say, don't be me.
Right.
They
Right.
pay them to say, don't be me. So, I mean, there's really no real excuse for these players to be doing these things. Yes, they got a boatload of testosterone. They are young and they are aggressive and they're male, which are all knocks
The
against them
male stud.
for doing dumb crap. That's cool, no problem. I can I can accept the fact that they're gonna feel that they can run through a brick wall just because they are they're all physical specimens of the NFL. Like, they are unique athletes, and that's you know a universal thing across all of them. But I mean, an explosive or a firework is still an explosive and a firework. Driving a really fast car drunk is still never a good idea. And I don't care who you are or where you were brought up, whether or not it was, impoverished or in Beverly Hills, everyone knows driving drunk is just a dumb idea because you can kill either yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that things that go kaboom or that light on fire or whatever are potentially dangerous. And so these guys just simply need to use common sense when they approach their lives, because there's just way too much on the line for both themselves and their families. The other thing is, do you know if Najee Harris has a family at all, like kids or anything else?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked into that. I mean, he obviously was
And
visiting family and friends in Antioch,
yeah,
but I don't know if he's
I,
got a wife or kids, because how stupid would that have been if he does?
correct, exactly. And so what my whole thing is that I generally find, just for what it's worth, generally speaking, that a lot of the NFL players that have their heads screwed on kind of straight and in the right direction, that end up having young families and they have kind of like a purpose, like where they're doing it for their family, they're doing it for something, they tend to be the ones that aren't doing dumb crap,
Right. Yep.
right?
And I do find it interesting, and I'm sure, like, most contracts, they actually showed, today about Christian Wilkins, contract, and it had, like, verbiage in there, like, no
Right.
rock climbing, no hang gliding, no parachuting,
I can't
that type
imagine
of
Christian
thing.
Wilkins on a hang glider, man. God, Jesus Christ. But and the thing, well, you're making good points. It's not like he was on some big deal. This is some 1-year deal, man. This was to get him to, like, all right, man, let's see what you can do on this 1-year deal, and then we'll see where we can go from there. So he's got to
This is
get
the
out there and
springboard.
perform. Yeah,
This was
man.
meant to be the springboard, and he
Mhm.
basically decided to light the springboard on fire and said, "Now I need to see what I can do."
I'm glad that analogy you use, a springboard, since we've gotten Ortiz in, who came from the Ravens. That kind of seems there to be like their MO. They're like, come over here, you know, we'll sign you on a cheap deal and we'll get you signed somewhere else. And, in already 1 year, we've seen that happen. So I think they're like, the way they play mess with the cap, they're like, hey, come on, come over here, and if we can retain you at the price we want, we'll do it. If not, all right, we said what we're going to do, get you a job somewhere else. And I think that's what they're doing with Najee, because I don't think he's a long-term plan. I think it's Hampton and this Sanders kid that I predicted, but we'll see about Sanders.
Yeah,
Well, you also got the great connection, the Harbaugh brothers, coming over from the Ravens to
Yeah.
the Chargers. That makes
I mean,
sense.
I think somebody said, I just dropped something on my dogs right here. I don't want to get it, but I think someone said that they've got like about another year of knowing the talent in the college pool
yeah, I
or
said
something like
that.
that.
I said that for sure.
You said okay,
I
all
said
right.
that for sure. Yeah, he's got about another year because the time horizon of head coaches in college is they typically do a 3-year assessment
Yeah,
of guys,
right.
and so he's got another year of actual tape that he has likely personally reviewed.
Probably, yeah.
And then
Mhm.
he may, depending on the quality of the team, and frankly, where he came from, they were a pretty good team. And so they had
He had some help
endowments and
too,
money and help and all that kind of stuff. And so
like, with his
he
camera.
may have had, well, yeah, there's that too, but he may have also had another kind of short list of guys that he was told were good 1 year even further back from that. But no tape, no film, no assessment, just names.
We're kind of at a disadvantage heading into the next draft. We only got 6 picks, I believe.
Yeah.
Coming from 10
Wow.
this year. Yeah, so I think next year they're going to have to open up the pocketbooks, because as of right now, and I'm not 100% on this because of the Slater signing. The Chargers were number 2 behind the Raiders in cap heading into next season. There was a big distance behind the Raiders. Raiders have a boatload for some reason. I don't even know why. Why, Jack? Why do you guys have so much cap?
Because they signed so many players to these 1-year contracts.
Okay.
So
The
I mean,
AP
you look
deal?
at it, guys like Mountain Kuntz. You got White, you got Landon Roberts. I mean, pretty much half the players, or the majority of the players that they signed, all have these 1-year contracts. And that just reminded me of something. Just a fun fact. So Devin White's blood cousin, first cousin, is Richardson, DeCorian Richardson, who the Raiders drafted last year. So I just learned that yesterday when he did his presser. I didn't know that, so I just thought it was kind of a fun fact.
I just found out too, and I totally forgot about it. I should know. KLS, Keandre Lambert Smith, his like cousin or uncle is Cam Chancellor. So there's that, I guess. So there's a lot of workings. Fun fact.
Awesome. Well, I think it's going to be an interesting next couple days. You're going to get some real football from the Chargers.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to get news from camp and preseason games coming up and all that sort of stuff for the rest of us as well.
Richie, do you know, real quick, sorry to interrupt, do you guys know about your teams, if you guys have any joint practices with other teams?
We do, and I have to look it back up to see when they're occurring, but yes, we do, at least one or two.
I think we have one with the Rams, which makes sense, you know, same everything, right? Same area. We usually, prior to Harbaugh, they did two, you know, it would be like the Saints and it'd be like the Cowboys or whatever. Jack, do you know by any chance?
That's I'm not sure who they have.
Sometimes those joint practices, I mean, they show you a lot, and they're really good. Good information come out of those joint practices.
I think joint practices are almost better than the preseason games for these guys.
It could be, man. Because it's different. Like I thoroughly enjoyed them, and I wish they would stream them.
All right, so the Raiders, they got joint practice August 14th with the 49ers.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if they got any more. Nope, I think that's the only one.
Yeah, same. I only had one as well.
I think there's two for the Broncos, but I know there's at least one. I just can't find out which team it's with. But I agree. The Broncos really were pushed and tested last year by their joint practice, and it allowed them to really make that big leap forward with Bo Nix, who was able to go against another team in advance of going against his first preseason opponent, for example.
Right.
To kind of get a feel for what it's like to go against a team that actually wants to hit you, right? Like it's all these other guys on those other joint practices, they're out for their jobs. They don't care if they hit you or not, and they really want to go at you. And so it really did put Bo Nix in a position to really elevate himself, and I think it helped a great deal, if I'm going to be honest. And I do like the idea and the concept of joint practices. Now, just as an aside, joint practices are always against opponents that you do not play that season. Joint practices are almost always outside of the division, although in rare occurrences, you sometimes get teams that you are playing against that particular year.
I think we are.
They're normally always outside of your division.
Yep, for the most part.
For the most part, that's the general rule.
So like we're joint practicing with the Rams, and we play them week 2 in preseason. So, and I think it's that week.
But that doesn't count. No, but that doesn't count.
Oh, you're talking about the season.
I'm talking the season itself, not
preseason. Yeah. You're right. We're playing all NFC teams, and
it makes sense. The Chargers doing the Rams. You don't have to travel.
Yeah, right.
It's all right there.
I know this is fun. I just noticed we're playing all NFC teams in preseason. Are you guys? Is that similar with you guys? By the top of your heads, like I usually thought they would mix in an AFC team in there.
Niners, Seattle. Yeah, I think so. I think the Raiders same thing.
We've got Lions, Saints, Rams, and okay, so
Niners, Cardinals, Saints.
Maybe I'm tripping, huh? Okay.
I got Niners, Cardinals, Saints, all NFC teams.
Other than the Saints, Rams and Niners, pretty well-run teams, so that should be a good test for, if they bring the ones out or even the backup. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I was right about these. So Seattle, the Niners, and Arizona.
Seattle, Niners, Arizona, and then I think Richie said the Saints and
Seattle
Cardinals.
Is going to be a tough team.
You think so?
Seattle's going to be a tough team this year.
There's a lot of people down on them, and I like Mike McDonald, man. I like him as a coach. I know he's a defensive guy, and it's like kind of like it's like similar to Pete, but not. I like them. But I think I've got the Rams in that division. I don't know. Niners have like no freaking wide receivers right now.
Yeah,
like they have like everybody's hurt.
They're in a
It's
bit of a
weird.
reset mode and all that kind of stuff, so that makes sense.
Yeah, they got another.
Next week.
Well, I was going to say they got wide receivers that are either coming off injury, like Ayuk, or they have another wide receiver who's looking to kind of get a big contract pay, and they're not wanting to pay him right now. So we'll see what happens with that.
Arizona looks risky too, man. I'm not counting them.
Yeah. So we're gonna have an awesome show next week. We're gonna go into obviously the Chargers game. We got proper football to talk about. We got actual players where we can start comparing and that kind of stuff. Yeah. We're gonna start getting into real padded practices where there's gonna be like actual competitions occurring. This is really the exciting part of the season where the rubber meets the road. Preseason games are all going to start cropping up and everything in very short order as well. This is one of my favorite times of the football season. This is you speculate and you talk about certain guys and you start assessing the film and the tape and everything coming out of the draft. And this is where you start saying, how was I at evaluating guys? How was I at my assessments? How well did I do? How well did I not do? Et cetera, et cetera.
Like it was our predictions on, our win and loss. Like, we'll see. Maybe I'm going to be like, whoa. Let's pump that back down a little bit,
Right. Or guys that we said that, hey, we're going to cut, and they end up playing well, or vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, guys, big shows coming up. Got some great stuff on the horizon for you on the Wild Wild West podcast. On the way out, click that thumbs up, and it helps us reach other fans just like you. And channels are going to be down below in the description where you can go ahead and subscribe to each and every one of them. Both clicking the thumbs up button and the subscribe button are both free to you and help us out tremendously. And until next week, ladies and gems, where we are going to talk about all of the AFC West teams where the West side is the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come